Hello everyone, it's Tiffany again, and today we're talking about 4 categories of church Christmas productions. This is most likely to be helpful for smaller churches who have done one style of Christmas Eve service for who knows how many years in a row, just as a way to start thinking about the different options that are available for you. When I wrote my very first script, my church had done the same style of Christmas Eve service for as long as I could remember. It was essentially the same as a church service, just with a little extra special music, dimmed lighting, and a candle lighting ceremony at the end. And I wanted to change it up, but not completely. And I was a little bit nervous that if I presented hey, I want to do something different, that people would automatically go to, we want to do a full production with costumes, we want it to be really dramatic, we want to do a theater production. So I tried to define different categories and I came up with 4. And it probably goes without saying, but there's so many variations outside of these 4 and ways to blend these 4. And this is just to get people maybe thinking out of the box of the same style you've done for years on end. Number 1, the Candlelight Service. Now this is a very traditional, sober, reflective style. This is the style that I grew up attending. The lights are dimmed, there's Christmas carols sung, scripture is read, and potentially a short sermon or message by one of the pastors. It's very sacred, it's very reflective and peaceful, it's very simple. What makes this service special is the dim lighting, the special music, and then a traditional candle lighting ceremony at the end. Lights go down, we light little candles down the rows, it probably sings something like Silent Night. While the structure is simple, it doesn't have to be boring. There are ways to layer themes, to layer meaning and symbolism, and even to break up that message into maybe shorter devotional moments that follow a story arc or a trajectory. One example is the production I directed a couple of years ago, and the outline and all the details needed to produce it are available on the website iorganizethat.com, and you can download all the information for free. Style number 2, a Christmas cantata. The main characteristics of a Christmas cantata is a heavy emphasis on music with a touch of the dramatic. This style often involves monologues, potentially costumed performances, narrators, readers, and a tighter blend of the words and the music, as opposed to singing a song all together and then a speaker comes up and speaks for 10 or 15 minutes. This might have a reader and then a special number and then more scripture reading and then congregational singing. It's a little bit more splintered and thus needs a script to bring it all together. And here we begin to see theatrical elements, maybe a costumed Mary giving a monologue or some more lighting changes, potentially background sound effects. A completely different way of doing it is having no speakers whatsoever, instead carrying the entire service from music, whether it's choirs or small groups or individual solos or costumed solos. You can also add in videos projected on the back or a set design. It has elements of the theatrical without going all the way to a full-on costumed performance. Speaking of costumed performances, that takes us to number 3, which is a full-on theatrical production. We've got costumes, we've got lighting, we've got set design, we've got people acting in character as opposed to just narrating or doing a one-off monologue at some point in the service. This is a highly visual production and it creates an immersive experience for your audience through the use of those theatrical techniques. Now, something you need to consider if you're thinking of a theatrical production is set design, costumes, lighting. These components can be very expensive very easily, and in our modern, highly visual world, there's a quality level that's expected for it to avoid feeling tacky or childish. It might make more sense to use a very minimalist style of a theatrical production and focus on the acting and the singing, almost bridging a Christmas cantata and a more traditional theatrical production together, capitalizing on the strengths of your talent and your team as opposed to going all the way to set design, costumes, and all of those components. A theatrical production, of course, would include a script and it's got characters, so there's more planning and strategizing and prep work done ahead of time for this style of production than there would be for the more simple candlelight service. One way to scale this back is by doing a monochrome production where everyone is simply wearing all black on a simple stage, or going towards more of a radio theater production where maybe you do background sounds and there's a backdrop that's projected on the screen screen, but the characters aren't so much acting as telling the story. Any of these kinds of creative productions are a spectrum from simple to more complex across all these different components, whether it's set design, lighting, singing, music, acting, narrating, speaking. And so it's really up to you to determine what is the best fit for your church and how can you optimize or maximize on your talent and their talents. And fourthly is a kids production. This is where you can get away with the cardboard backdrops and the bathrobe shepherds a lot more easily. Kids productions usually heavily rely on songs and recitations and hand movements and kids just being kids. If your church has a lot of families or you're in a community with a lot of families with small children, this is a great way to get neighbor kids involved and get Sunday school classes to practice songs and lines and recitations ahead of time, really immersing families in the Christmas experience while they're in Sunday school. The audience will have a higher tolerance for cardboard sets and kind of thrown together costumes, and honestly, parents are just going to be there with their cameras and taking a picture of their cute little kid. It can be a really special tradition for your church, but one thing to consider is if you have not done children's productions in the past, consider if you have enough families to put one on, and secondly, if your families are likely to participate, or is this just going to be seen as something else in the already too crazy holiday season? And kids programs don't necessarily exclude older kids, teenagers, and adults. Often the singing of different songs is carried by Sunday school classes, and then older kids might play the character roles while teenagers and adults serve as narrators. There's certainly something for everybody, it's just that the emphasis is usually on smaller children. So of these four styles, how do you go about deciding what is the best fit for your church? There's a lot of questions you can ask yourself about your church and what your church has done in the past that might help guide you towards what style is going to be the best fit. I've created a video on that specifically and I'll link it in the description below. This channel and the blog that goes with it specializes in the Candlelight Service style and the Christmas Cantata style. The scripts and the resources that you can find on iorganizethat.com are going to be focused on those two particular styles, but some of the planning principles, the logistical components, and the guides that are available there can be adapted towards other styles as well.